Welcome back, Pauls. Are you ready for the next chapter? It's chapter 8, A Startling Plunk. Nancy halted as directed and stood facing the man. Who are you? She asked. I'm a police guard, miss, the man replied. Just call me Patrick. And who are you? Quickly, Nancy explained and then asked to see his identification. He opened his coat, pulled out a leather case, and showed her his shield, proving that he was a plainclothes man. His name was Tom Patrick. Have you seen anyone prowling around the grounds? Nancy asked him. Not a soul, miss. This place has been quieter than a cemetery tonight. When the young Sleet told him about the furtive figure she had seen from the window, the detective laughed. I believe you saw me, he said. I guess I'm not so good at hiding as I thought I was. Nancy laughed lightly. Anyway, you soon nabbed me, she told him. The two chatted for several minutes. Tom Patrick told Nancy that people in Cliffwood regarded Mrs. Turnbull as being a little queer. They said that if she thought her house was haunted, it was all in line with the stories of the odd people who had lived there from time to time during the past 100 years or so. Would this rumor make the property difficult to sell? Nancy questioned the detective. It certainly would. Nancy said she thought the whole thing was a shame. Mrs. Turnbull is one of the loveliest women I have ever met, and there's not a thing the matter with her, except that once in a while she is forgetful. You don't think that some of these happenings we have heard about are just pure imagination? Tom Patrick asked. Nancy told him about the owl in Miss Flora's bedroom. The door was locked, every screen was fastened, and the damper in the chimney closed. You tell me how the owl got in there. Tom Patrick's eyes opened wide. You say this happened only a little while ago? He queried. When Nancy nodded, he added, Of course I can't be everywhere on these grounds at once, but I'll be round and round the building. I have never stopped walking since I arrived. I don't see how anyone could have gotten inside the mansion without my seeing him. I'll tell you my theory, said Nancy. I believe there's a secret underground entrance from some other place on the grounds. It may be in one of these outbuildings. Anyway, tomorrow morning I'm going on a search for it. Well, I wish you luck, Tom Patrick said. And if anything happens during the night, I'll let you know. Nancy pointed to a window on the second floor. That's my room, she said. If you don't have a chance to use the door knocker, just throw a stone up against the screen to alert me. I'll wake up instantly, I know. The guard promised to do this, and Nancy went back into the mansion. She climbed the stairs and for a second time that night undressed. Helen has already gone back to sleep, so Nancy crawled into the big double bed noiselessly. The two girls awoke the next morning about the same time, and immediately Helen asked for the full details of what Nancy has learned outdoors the night before. After hearing how her friend has been stopped by the guard, she shivered. You might have been in real danger, Nancy, not knowing who he was. You must be more careful. Suppose that man has been the ghost? Nancy laughed but made no reply. The girls went downstairs and started to prepare breakfast. In a few minutes, Aunt Rosemary and her mother joined them. Did you find out anything more last night? Mrs. Hayes asked Nancy. Only that a police guard named Tom Patrick is on duty, Nancy answered. As soon as breakfast was over, the young Sleet announced that she was about to investigate all the outbuildings on the estate. I'm going to search for an underground passage leading to the mansion. It's just possible that we hear no hollow sounds where we tap the walls because of double doors or walls where the entrance is. Aunt Rosemary looked at Nancy intently. You are a real detective, Nancy. I see now why Helen wanted us to ask you to find a ghost. Nancy's eye twinkled. I may have some instinct for sleuthing, she said, but unless I can solve this mystery, it won't do any of us much good. Turning to Helen, she suggested that they put on the old clothes they had brought with them. Attired in sports shirt and jeans, the girls left the house. Nancy led the way first to the old ice house. She rolled back the creaking, sliding door and gazed inside. The tall, narrow building was about 10 feet square. On one side were a series of sliding doors, one above the other. I've heard Miss Flora say, Helen spoke up, that in days gone by huge blocks of ice were cut from the river where it was frozen over and dragged here on a sledge. The blocks were stored here and taken off from the top down through these various sliding doors. The story rather rules out the possibility of any underground passages leading from this building, said Nancy. I presume there was an ice in here most of the years. The Floor was covered with rank sawdust, and although Nancy was sure she would find nothing of interest beneath it, still she decided to take a look. Seeing an old rusted shovel in one corner, she picked it up and began to dig. There was only dirt beneath the sawdust. Well, that clue fizzed out, Helen remarked, as she and Nancy started for the next building. This has once been used as a smokehouse. Its too had an earthen floor. In one corner was a small fireplace where smouldering fires of hickory woods had once burnt. The smoke has curled up a narrow chimney to the second floor, which was windowless. Rows and rows of huge chunks of pork hung up there on hooks to be smoked, Helen explained, and days later turned into luscious hams and bacon. There was no indication of a secret opening, and Nancy went outside the small two-story peak-roofed structure and walked around. Up one side of the brick building and leading to a door above were the remains of a ladder. Now only the side piece which had held the rungs remained. "Give me a boost, will you, Helen?" Nancy requested. "I want to take a look inside." Helen squatted on the ground and Nancy climbed to her shoulders. Then Helen, bracing her hands against the wall, straightened up. Nancy opened the half-rooted wooden door. "No ghost here," she announced. Nancy jumped to the ground and started for the servants' quarters. But a thorough inspection of this brick and wood structure failed to reveal a clue to a secret passageway. There was only one outbuilding left to investigate, which Helen said was an old carriage house. This was built of brick and was fairly large. No carriages stood on its wooden floor, but around the walls hung old harnesses and reins. Nancy paused a moment to examine one of the bridles. It was set with two hand-painted medallions of women's portraits. Suddenly, her reflection was interrupted by a scream. Turning, she was just in time to see Helen plunge through a hole in the floor. In a flash, Nancy was across a carriage house and looking down into a gaping hole where the rotted floor has given away. "Helen!" she cried out in alarm. "I'm all right," came a voice from below. "Nice and soft down here. Please throw me your flash." Nancy removed the flashlight from the pocket of her jeans and tossed it down. "I thought maybe I would discover something," Helen said, "but this is just a plain old hole. Give me a hand, will you, so I can climb up?" Nancy lay flat on the floor and with one arm grabbed a supporting beam that stood in the center of the carriage house. Reaching down with the other arm, she assisted Helen in her ascent. "We would better watch our steps around here," Nancy said as her friend once more stood beside her. "You are so right," Helen agreed, brushing dirt off her jeans. Helen's plunge had given Nancy an idea that there might be other opening in the floor and that one of them could be an entrance to a subterranean passage. But though she flashed a light over every inch of the carriage house floor, she could discover nothing suspicious. "Let's quit," Helen suggested. "I'm a mess and besides I'm hungry." "All right," Nancy agreed. "Are you game to search the cellar this afternoon?" "Oh, sure." After lunch, they started to investigate the storeroom in the cellar. There was a cool stone room where barrels of apples had once been kept. There was another formerly filled with bags of whole wheat flour, barley, bucket wheat and oats meal. "And everything was grown on the estate," said Helen. "Oh, it must have been perfectly wonderful," Nancy said. "I wish we could go back in time and see how life was in those days." "Maybe if we could, we would know how to find that ghost," Helen remarked. Nancy thought so too. As the girls went from room to room in the cellar, Nancy beamed a flashlight over every inch of wall and floor. At times, the young sleuth's puzzle would quicken when she thought she had discovered a trap door or secret opening. But each time she had to admit failure, there was no evidence of either one in the cellar. "This has been a discouraging day," Nancy remarked, sighing, "but I'm not giving up." Helen felt sorry for her friend. To cheer Nancy, she said with a laugh, "Storeroom after storeroom, but no room to store a ghost." Nancy had to laugh, and together the two girls ascended the stairway to the kitchen. After changing their clothes, they helped Aunt Rosemary prepare the evening dinner. When the group has eaten and later gathered in the parlor, Nancy reminded the others that she expected her father to arrive the next day. "Dad didn't want me to bother meeting him, but I just can't wait to see him. I think I'll meet all the trains from Chicago that stop here." "I hope your father will stay with us for 2 or 3 days, Miss Flora spoke up. "Surely he'll have some idea about our ghost." "And good ones too," Nancy said. "If he's on early train, he'll have breakfast with us. I'll meet it up at 8 o'clock. But later that evening, Nancy's plan was suddenly changed. Hannah Grant telephoned her to say that a man at the telegraph office has called the house a short time before to read a message from Mr. Drew. He had been unavoidably detained and would not arrive Wednesday. In the telegram, your father said that he will let us know when he will arrive, the shopkeeper added. I am disappointed, Nancy remarked, but I hope this delay means that Dad is on the trail of the Willie Wharton. Speaking of Willie Wharton, said Hannah, I heard something about him today. What was that? Nancy asked. That he was seen down by the river right here in River Heights a couple of days ago. Oh my God. Was Willie Wharton the one who had operated the truck and made an accident to Nancy and Mr. Drew? Stay tuned for the next chapter, guys. Have a happy day.